Yo soy Cristina Jurado y este es el segundo episodio de Librisimo, el espacio de YouTube que trata de las novedades editoriales que acaban de salir al mercado o están a punto de ser publicadas. En este episodio contamos con la visita del británico Adrian Tchaikovsky, cuya bio os voy a dejar en la caja de comentarios. Hoy ha venido a hablarnos de OGROS, su nueva novela corta, que sale en la colección Freder del sello Dolmen y que está traducido por Cristina Macía. Esta historia se sitúa en un marco llamado Terrible World Revolutions, en el que el autor explora sociedades distópicas en las que se lucha contra fuerzas opresoras. Veréis que la entrevista está en inglés, pero están habilitados los subtítulos para vuestra comodidad. No os perdáis esta historia, que empieza de una manera y luego se transforma. Yo creo que os va a gustar y que es muy entretenida. Y ya sin más dilación os dejo con la entrevista. Well, this is our second episode on Librisimo, and I'm thrilled here to welcome Adrian Tchaikovsky with us. Hello, Adrian.
Hello. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for being with us. You are officially our first international author, and I don't know, I think you will get something out of this, like a gift, a virtual gift out of it, hopefully. So we are here to speak not about your very long and rich career, which we could, but this is going to be focused on your upcoming book in Spanish, which is OGROS, and I think it will be probably translated as OGROS. And I just wanted to tell you, I had the opportunity to read it, and it's really, I'm very, very thrilled by this work because, well, we will get into it a little later, but we're going to start with what we do ask everybody that comes into Librisimo, which is the beginning, but not the beginning of the book. The beginning is the title. Why OGROS?
I guess, partly it's going to be because I'm very much coming to pretty much everything from the point of view of someone who was steeped in like tabletop fantasy role playing, and so ogres are just they're a standard concept. If you have a this sort of big brutal monster, then it's an ogre. And also in folklore, the defining thing about ogres, as well as being bigger than people, is that they eat people. They are kind of exploitative, so that if you've got this sort of class system, as you have in the book, where the overclass, the ruling class, are these huge and monstrous creatures, ogres just seems to be the absolute perfect term for them.
So people know what they're getting into when they start reading. This is a book about ogres. And
well, you say that.
They may think this is about this, but then once they start reading it, things happened. And one of the things I really liked about this book is this sort of gender bender kind of idea, because you may think you're coming into a fantasy book. And I don't want to make any spoilers, but then something happens and it's not necessarily what you thought it was going to be, which I think it was a very good idea, because I think it's really changing what we think we know about genres. It's kind of genius. It's really good. It's something new, something that it's provocative too. And I wanted to know, because I know that this book, it's framed within Terrible World Revolutions, which is kind of like a canvas for dystopian futures. And there's the other two titles are Ironclads and Firewalkers. And I would like to know, what makes you think about this sort of worlds?
I mean, there's especially in this little set of books. So, and just to clarify, they're three separate books. They're not set in the same world,
No, yeah.
but they all focus on the same. They are sort of linked by their theme
Yes,
and
exactly.
content about. They are revolution. They are talking about sort of different types of oppressive regime and the people who rise up against them. Um, and looking around at the world at the moment, I can't imagine why that why that was on my mind at any time. And
It seems pretty
the
obvious.
only well, this I mean the terrifying thing when you write these sort of books is I mean Ironclads came out I think in 20 I think it may be 2014, and the world has become so much more like the world in that book in the years since its publication. And this is kind of the what you end up learning to live with when you're writing near future dystopian fiction, is that actually a bunch of stuff you are using as sort of a science fictional device will absolutely be true. I mean, not the technology necessarily, not the the actual the weapons or the machines or whatever you're writing about, but the social structures you're writing about. Because obviously you're writing about your own present in a way. You're always commenting on what's going on now, but that incorporates the direction you see everything going. And if you're seeing clearly enough, what you put down on the page does unfortunately sometimes come true.
And it's true that what you were referring, that this is kind of like not the same world building, and I want to apologize if it sound like I wanted to say the same word building, but it's more about what you mentioned. It's a theme. It's about oppressors
Yeah.
and people fighting those oppressors. In this case, in Ogres, it's very clear that they are kind of like predators. And I don't know if you like the idea of, this is kind of a cliche, but that this book, this idea, it's a metaphor for something that is happening now. It always has happened in unfortunately in our world.
I mean, it's I I will confess I do not write metaphor in the way that you're probably supposed to write metaphor, because I'm always interested in a world that makes sense and works on its own. And when you get books that are written from a strongly metaphorical standpoint, the world of those books doesn't tend to make a great deal of sense objectively, because that's not the point of it. Ogres is based the I can't really go into detail because it would spoil the central thing of the book, which is, well, how did things get to this point? But when if you read the book and if you get there and you get to the point where it's all laid out as to precisely what is going on, all of that is based on real science. That is based on genuine scientific proposals that people have made with the best of intentions. And it's simply me looking at those and thinking, well, all right, but if you did that, this is what would happen. And I when I first came across the sort of the theories and the proposals, I was thinking, have you not thought through the implications of what you're saying and how this would actually be used? And unfortunately, that's sometimes what you get with genuinely well-meaning science. So it is obviously a social commentary to some extent, because the even though I'm talking about actual ogres actually eating people, and this whole and this weird sort of semi-pastoral situation that where everyone is kind of accepting that obviously yes, the ogres are supposed to be in charge and all that sort of thing, but it's especially a commentary on the way British power structures work, particularly because we still kind of have this entrenched upper class that people seem to be very deferential to for no good reason. But at the same time, it's also, this is a world that stands on its own 2 feet as far as the scientific logic of what is going on there.
And I also would like to mention that it may seem when you start reading the book, there is a little bit of steampunk that comes out here and there. You may think that you are in a certain set, but I don't want to, we don't want to make any spoilers, but I think it's very intelligent the way that you present the facts in such a way that, as precisely what you mentioned, it makes sense at the end when you think about everything that happened. One of the things I also like to ask about the authors that come here is about how they find the names of the places, the names of the characters. In terms of the main character, which is Torkel, I don't know if I pronounce it right.
Mhm.
I say Torkel. That's how would I think about it. I don't know how is it going to be in Spanish. We probably would add it later. How does normally, I guess in this particular story, but it could be for any of your stories, how you come up with the names and of places and characters.
So mostly the names are kind of suggested by the characters. I always have a sense of what are the names going to be like in this particular setting. And there tends to be you don't get this wild range of all the names seem to kind of need to kind of fit together. And or alternatively need to reflect that this character has a different name because they come from maybe somewhere where the naming conventions are a bit different. But weird. So Torquil is a little different, and I'm not quite sure why I made this decision. But there is a character with a name. I don't think it's quite the same as that. It's very similar to that in a sort of beloved cult fantasy film from the 1980s called Krull, and I believe I think he is the head of the group of bandits in that.
Okay, yeah, I
And
know.
I was yeah, and obviously we have a group of he's not the lead. Torquil in the book is not the leader of the bandits, but there is a group of bandits that he's kind of on friendly terms with. I think it's just that it's a favorite film of mine, and there is something of the feel of that film with the way with the particular sort of the dynamics of oppression and the superior physical capabilities of the bad guys in that film compared to the kind of the bandits and rebels, and the fact that the bandits are not necessarily sort of hero bandits at the beginning, they are just straight up bandits, and all of that kind of fed into the book in this weirdly low-key way. So I think it's a bit of an homage to that.
It's very interesting his the way you write this character, how he becomes like well, it's kind of like maybe a youngster or late adolescent person that it's very he doesn't care about anything much and fools around a lot, and something happens and it becomes a kind of like outcast, and then things unfold from there. And we can see this path. You mentioned it explicitly in the book, becomes like this kind of the way of the hero, the path of the hero kind of thing. And then things happen because you don't stick to the path of the hero. Things always surprise you. And I think it's very interesting that you said this right from the beginning, because you make the reader kind of like your body, like someone who's in with you throughout the journey of the book.
Yeah.
And I would like to know, it's something that you mentioned earlier, the decision. This is something that I repeat all the time, being an author myself. Writing is about making decisions all the time. You're making decisions all the time when you're writing. That's why it's so tiring sometimes, because you're constantly making decisions about your characters, the setting, the narrative, etc. And I would like to know how and when and how did you come up with the idea to write it in second person, which I thought was great. I loved it. I know it's very difficult, but it's very refreshing.
Well, I think this is the only thing of any length I've written in second person. And I think I can't really talk about the reason because that in itself is a spoiler. When you get to the end of the book, there is a point at which it becomes obvious why this is written in second person, and also kind of a second person narrative is also kind of a first person narrative because someone is telling it. But there is and so there is a point where that is narratively sort of necessary, but also I think it's a lot to do with the precise level of knowledge. Um, I think that if you're writing in third person, even if it's quite close third person, where you're just looking over the shoulder of one character all the time, you are still seeing more than that character knows.
Mm-hmm.
And Torquil's quest for knowledge is one of the major parts of the book's structure.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're seeing in first person, obviously you have access to that character's thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
which again is something that didn't seem appropriate for the precise way that the story would go. So second person gives you that very peculiar sort of almost balance point between those two, where you can still know more than the character knows if need be, but also you don't know as much as the character knows if it's all, if I wish to conceal things that the character knows but the reader shouldn't.
Yeah, and it makes also, as I mentioned also earlier, it makes the reader feel it's an accomplice in a bit, and which is very nice because you feel part of the story from maybe not from the beginning, but there's a point in the story when then you realize, okay, the dynamics here, and then this is what at least this is what I felt. I felt, okay, I've been the accomplice of something. I wasn't sure where was it. And it's always nice to be part. I wouldn't say it's nice to be part, but it's interesting to feel that you're part of a revolution and the dynamics of revolution. I know this is a theme that is very close to your heart, and due to what we mentioned earlier, also the world we live in. But why do you think it is important for, or maybe not, but why do you think it's important for you to translate this need for fighting against oppression into fiction?
Because I think that's probably the only way I'm going to make a contribution, to be honest. I mean, I don't know what I would necessarily have the courage or ability to do to change the world for the better in a more direct way.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be absolutely frank. I'm someone of a certain sort of I'm a certain age and a certain physical fitness and a certain all of the other stuff that Lord alone knows. If it was suddenly came to fighting in the streets, I don't genuinely know where I would fit in that. But this is the thing I can do.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of the only leverage I feel I have on the world, is to write about the overthrow of oppressive systems.
Mm-hmm.
And hope that maybe that gives some people hope, or gives some people inspiration to kind of to work in more sort of material effective ways, to work kind of in local ways, to just to see where the bad guys are, really. Maybe, I mean, it's which makes me sound a lot grander than I am, I think. And this is genuinely, we're in a world where there's a great deal going wrong, and we are all very powerless, and this is a pulpit I've been given where I can at least get some sort of message out there.
Do you think artists and authors in particular have a responsibility to answer the call of their time?
I don't think I can speak for artists and authors and creative types globally. I don't think I can put that kind of responsibility on everyone. I feel that I have a responsibility because I've got a position where I've got the freedom to do so, without sort of fear of someone kicking my door in, without fear of losing my livelihood or anything like that. So I'm very, very insulated, and safe from the potential consequences. As a lot of people, other people are in other parts of the world, or even in this country, may not be. I do think that art is a necessary component of revolution, and it always has been. There's always been a major part of that, and one of the things, one of that kind of those sort of Orwellian 1984 things, is the idea about, if you want an authoritarian state that will last forever, you have to restrict human thought, and pushing the boundaries of human thought is what creativity is all about. So I think it is a necessary component, but I don't think I can say that it's a positive duty, because I think that a lot of people aren't necessarily in a position where they can or where they would be safe to.
And I know that you mentioned in other, we mentioned a lot, sorry for this. I will become better with words in English. But I know, because I've read some of your previous interviews of other works, that you plan very, very much your stories. You're a planner in general. And you tend not to have to rework a lot the final product. I always said the writing is rewriting, because you're constantly trying to find the best words to say what you have in mind. But I like those technical parts. Maybe it's just me being an author and being very curious about those things. But in this particular, if you can remember, in Ogres, do you remember how many versions of the novel you had to at the end?
Yeah, I mean, my normal process, like you say, I do a lot of planning. Most especially, I do a lot of planning with the setting. So I have a very good idea of how it all works before I start writing anything. What this means is everything I write then hopefully fits together very neatly. Ideally, and I think this was the case with Ogres, I will write the first draft. I will have one reading pass where it's mostly to do with just taking out unnecessary stuff, because I tend to overwrite. And then whatever I have left after that will be what I submit. And it doesn't always work out like that, but that's certainly my ideal situation. And I do think it's the amount of planning I put into the world that I'm writing in that means I can get through all of that and then not have lots of bits that don't fit together and that I have to go back and change.
And just round it up for the end of the story. And again, because we don't want to say anything, you have to buy the book and read the book. But I know that sometimes, even though you plan a lot, sometimes you said that the characters and the story takes you to certain ending. It's not so. Just to sum up, you don't necessarily plan the ending always. And I wanted to know, because in this particular book, it seems to me that you needed really to plan the end to have this effect, this emotion, or this surprise that you want to get the reader to have at the end. So was it like that? Was it true, or was it a challenge for you? Was it difficult?
So what I normally do with the ending is the bit I don't plan. Usually I will have, the plan will go as far as getting basically everyone in the room for that final scene. And then I will write the book, and hopefully the direction and momentum of what I write will show me where that needs to go. And you usually get out of this what feels like, oh, well, this always has to be the ending. But just as in Children of Time, with Ogres, when you get to it, you'll know exactly what I mean. There is a point at the end of the book where a character makes a decision, and that then sets how the ending is going to go. That was not planned out. Okay. I knew we would get to that point, but what the decision the character would make. Excuse me, something just turned up there. What the decision the character would make is entirely based on where things, on my feeling at that point when I got there in the writing. Sorry, that was a bit of a mess. Do you want me to say that again?
No, that's fine. I think you explained it very well, and this is the part that I thought it was interesting, because my feeling was that you plan very much everything, and then sometimes the ending kind of like you work it out depending on how the story was going. But now, especially in this book, it seems to me that you needed to know the ending very well to write it, but I was wrong. So, which is great.
I mean,
great to find these things.
Yeah, and I think I mean, this is something I've said that other writers find quite quite odd that I don't know because often you get writers who they don't plan a great deal of the book, but the ending is the thing that they know. But I genuinely find when I've tried to force an ending, it never feels right. But I find if I get to that point, I know this is where the climax is going to be, but precisely how it plays out. I do think you need the momentum. All the little decisions you make as you write the book will then tell you exactly the best way for that final scene to land. And obviously, honestly, the ending is the most important part.
Yes.
Because that's what the readers are left with.
And to me, it's fascinating because the very first thing that I always write, no matter what, is the ending. Even though I may change things later, but this is something because I need to know where I'm going. And then I can decide where it started. So for me, that's so fascinating about the process that you just mentioned. And we're going to start to wrap up the interview. I just wanted to know if you can tell us anything about what you're working on right now, or it is super secret.
So I've just sent back to my agent the new book in the Children of Time series, which was not a book where my normal process worked. It needed a lot of juggling about and changing. It's a very structurally complex book, and it was very difficult to put together, and took way longer than I was really happy with. But it needed the extra time. And I'm just finishing writing the first draft of the new book in the Tyrant Philosophers series that started with City of Last Chances, which I think is also getting a Spanish translation.
And that's why everybody, you have to read them, buy them, and read them, please. And I have two very short questions for you. Last book that you read that you thought, wow, this is great, and I would recommend it.
Okay, yeah, I think, I mean, there's been a few, but I think the one that really stuck in my mind was Premier Mohammed's Siege of Burning Grass, which is just an amazing kind of sci-fi / fantasy book. It's got an incredible world that it's set in, but also just the main character that you see everything through is really quite unique as a protagonist.
Can you repeat the author's name?
Yes, it's Premi Mohammed. She's a Canadian author,
Yeah.
and the book is Siege of Burning Grass.
Okay. And just our last question is, if you could pick someone to be in Librisimo, another author, who would you pick? Who would you recommend?
Oh, I mean, would it need to be someone who I know is translated in Spanish, or?
No, somebody that you would think it would be interesting for the Spanish audience. Somebody you may not know, and that's why you want to know through this space.
Yeah, I'll pick. There's British author Emma Newman.
Oh, yeah,
I will
I've
choose.
heard
She
of
wrote
her.
some
Through.
Yeah, she does amazing science fiction and fantasy, and she's got a new book just out or just about to come out, I think.
I think it was China maybe who mentioned her to me. So I will.
Awesome.
Yeah, I will take from you and him. And I wanted to thank you for being with us and for sharing those reflections and thoughts about ogres. I recommend it. You guys have to read this book. It's really good. It's very entertaining and much deep than what you may think at first glance. So thank you, Adrian, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. And I'm going to stop
Thank you very much.
recording.